Hello everyone and welcome back to Creator in Conversation. I'm your host, Owen McCauley, the president and founder behind TASQ Art, Tala Academy of Sequential Art. If you're new to the podcast, what we like to do here is host a range of different masterclasses, in-depth industry discussions and interviews with leading industry experts in the field of sequential art. What is sequential art? It's images in deliberate sequence juxtaposed to convey information, usually and typically in the form of a narrative. To bring that down to a singular and simpler definition, we're talking about the comic books, comic strips, even animation is applicable. Today we have a very unique guest speaking on behalf of DCAF, Dublin Comics Arts Festival. Mr. Seán O'Reilly joined me via a Zoom call to be able to discuss the upcoming DCAF Festival, free to the public and happening on the 30th of November. And Seán's uniquely positioned to discuss the festival by not only being on the committee that organises and operates DCAF, but he's also an animator by day and produces his own comic books. So he's uniquely qualified to share his insights about in the animation field and industry and the comic book community in general here in Ireland. I found this conversation very insightful. I hope you do too. So sit back, relax and enjoy today's conversation with Mr. Seán O'Reilly. Seán O'Reilly, welcome to Creator in Conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks so much for having me on.
So Seán, just a little bit about yourself. Have you always been interested in pursuing a career and making your own comic books, or is this something that you came to much later in life?
Yeah, well, I've always drawn from like a really young age, and I'm actually an animator. That's my day job. So the comics work that I do is kind of purely just for fun on the side, you know?
Excellent. And when you were studying animation, where did you go for your studies?
I went to IDT, the National Film School in Dunleary.
And what made you want to pursue animation? Were you always an avid viewer of the Disney films, Pixar, or
Yeah,
actually Pixar? Yeah, Toy Story. God, it's been, to me, Pixar still like very recent, but it's been around, what, 30 plus years now?
yeah. Probably actually Toy Story was like the big one that got me into it, you know? Yeah, I mean, I've always been an animation fan. Primarily, I grew up on early Simpsons, like the best years of The Simpsons, you know? Yeah, I guess it just came to, I was like 18, and you have to pick a career for the rest of your life and hope you get it right at such a young age. I was kind of split between like maybe thinking about music production or something, even though I didn't make any music at the time. Looking back, definitely would have been a big mistake. So I probably made the right choice. Yeah, it was really, animation was like, it was really one of the only things I could see myself doing, you know? I've always been kind of creative and definitely learn better by doing. So things that are academic just never really appealed to me, you know? So it seemed like a career that I could, make a living from and, you know, make money from being creative.
Awesome. And what kind of projects do you find yourself working on in the animation sphere? Is it more commercial, or is it feature, or is it television?
Yeah, so I would say 95% television. I've been doing it for, I think, 10 years. Maybe it'll be my 11th year, sort of later this. Oh, what year are we? Oh, yeah. Forget what month we are. Yeah, so, geez, it could even have ticked into 11 years already. I think I'm like just about to wrap my 11th series. And yeah, a lot of like kid stuff. That's what's produced in Ireland. But you know, I've definitely had worse jobs. I remember I had a friend years ago who said like I was kind of new in the industry, and he was a few years older than me and had kind of a lot more experience. And he said he was like, if you can learn to animate a kid flying a kite and kicking a ball, that's going to come up again and again and again. And that's true enough. Like some kids shows are, yeah, they're not maybe the most exciting projects. I might not actually watch them, but they're pretty fun to work on. And I've definitely had worse jobs, you know.
I think it was about 2 years ago. I was at the conference with was it NTA, National Talent
Oh
Academy? I
yeah,
think it
that's
might be.
brilliant.
Yeah, they were doing a talk and it had a report basically, and it was the release of the report, and they were saying that obviously there's a huge demand here in Ireland,
Mm.
massive interest in animation, and there's a couple of studios. Obviously, you have Brown Bag, Boulder, Pink Kong, Lighthouse, Cartoon Saloon, etc. So there's no shortage of schools now, kind of feeding into
Yeah.
it. But everyone wants to work in feature animation because there's more time, more budget usually associated with it. But they're like, no, no. If you can get into TV, TV is there was at the time anyway, but this said 2 years ago, there was they were under resourced in the TV world, and they were trying to get more to sign up for it. But then it was like trying to pull the students away to like, no, come to a tighter deadline and a quicker turnaround.
Yeah.
But children's, it's interesting your comments there on the focus of children's shows in particular here in the country, because it's the same within literature. We've been noticing just this coming weekend, we have a workshop on character design with Estrella Lorenko, and she
Oh yeah.
was like doing a lot with children's books and publishing, and we have some doing work experience with us this week, and they were saying as well about their, thinking that's a good, very fertile field for them to get into of pursuing a career in sequential arts. What do you think is the kind of push towards the children's side of it? Is it just the nature of the contracts that come into the country, or is it more it's been kind of underutilized or recognized for a period of time, and now they realize get the audience at a younger age?
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. I could take a guess and I could be way off. I will take a guess. Why not? I'm not saying this is right though, but I know, for example, like a lot of money in animation comes in the form of merchandise, right? So, like, there's older kids don't necessarily want plushies. They start to want plastic toys and figures and stuff, and those are more expensive to produce. So this could be one of the reasons, like young kind of preschool shows, teddies and soft toys are the merch that kind of comes with those. They're cheaper to produce and you can sell them for the same price point. So I think like every I was about to say I'm not going to speak for every studio. Why not? I will. Okay, a lot of studios like goals are obviously to make some money, and a way to do that is you're kind of hoping you'll have like a breakout hit that you can spin up into a line of merch and stuff. I think TV for older audiences is just kind of harder to produce or harder to get funded, kind of. And like there are some studios here that are doing kind of like adult animated shows, which is, just shows aimed at grown-ups. It's not anything dirty. But like off the top of my head, the one or two that I can think of are kind of service jobs for studios overseas.
Hmm.
Um, I don't really hear too often about like adult series getting funded on kind of this side of the world too often.
Yeah, there's actually a shout out there in the last while for an Irish language adult humor
Yes,
anime. So that was really interesting because, as you were saying, there's not much we see in the adult sphere and here in this island. But then I suppose the Irish language, it's been very good to my career because we set up Light and Strike Comics back in 2011, but we didn't print our first anthology to about 2012. And the anthology was doing okay. But what really generated money and further work for the contributors was video game companies found us, and they were like, hey, could you do a comic book adaptation? And back then, the games were still in a box. So you would have like, a booklet insert,
right.
and it'd be like a prequel comic. But one was a company called CRG, Clear Rivaraj Gaelga, and they were basically, hey, we have these games in Irish, and it's just a game. The language was secondary to it, but they said no matter what, whoever plays the game will intuitively pick up the language just by the console controls. Clay, yes, shius, yes. So it's nice to see that kind of thinking where the funding for the Irish language can come in, and now the animators, the artists, they can also benefit from it then as well. That's
Mm.
always I'm appreciative when people are clever with that way of spreading the money around, as opposed to it's nice having the bake sales and the signposts and stuff. But this, I'm like, oh, this is significant because it's getting
Yeah,
more
yeah.
people mobilized towards it. And you mentioned that you always loved like drawing then from a young age as well, and then you've done a lot of the drawing that you do in comics then have been for fun also for yourself outside of the animation side. Was there ever a marriage between the two loves of like comics and animation for you growing up as well? Were you part of the Fox Kids, X-Men, Batman animated
Oh yeah.
series coming up? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that like 90s Spider-Man was like
Hmm.
the best. Um yeah, sure. And also like I grew up on the Beano and the Dandy, And my
Yeah.
grandparents would buy me the annual. I think I still have like the 98 annual on my shelf behind me here, it's my favorite. Um yeah, absolutely. Like grew up on that. I think like the reason I do it on the side and I'm not trying to make a career out of it. I mean, I think I'm better at animating than I am at drawing comics. But it's also just nice to have something where the pressure is a little lower. Like
Hmm.
you're not relying on it for an income, so you don't have to be, you know, your very best every time you pick up a pen, kind of.
It's funny because we had Dave Gibbons on just a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that he's now kind of like semi-retired or whatever, but he goes down to the local community centre and he does like a life drawing class, and he goes, for the first time in so many years of my life, I'm drawing just for the love of it, not being
Yeah,
paid for it, not being told what to draw. So I think it is important. Sometimes it's a wonderful thing when you can turn your passion or your hobby into your career, but also it does add another facet dimension to it.
yeah,
So you don't
absolutely.
want, so it's nice to be able to produce the work stress free.
Hmm.
I often said I spent some time as a program director in animation myself, and I would say as we recruited the students, the work is vocational. It's not like some jobs you can go in, clock in 9 to 5, and leave your work at the desk. This is something which, if it's because it's narrative based, your mind can't help but wonder, even if you're not at your desk, where do we go next? How do we connect it? For yourself, have you seen many similarities or differences between, because it's all sequential art, but obviously two very different mediums when it comes to comics and animation. But is there anything that you see like a bridge between the two when you're working on something?
I tell you, I do struggle because I think so much in movement.
Hmm.
So like, the big thing in comics is freezing a panel at that perfect moment that, describes what's
Yeah.
going on. And I do kind of struggle with that because I also yeah, I'm more tuned to think in terms of animation. So I think in terms of like a 19 by 1080, sorry, 1920 by 1080 frame.
Yep.
Um yeah, and so just I suppose I think about composition through that shape. So even that changes how I approach comics because yeah, you sort of feel like you're starting from scratch every time I try and draw something, because it's not a visual language that I'm as familiar with.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I do remember, I know storyboarding and drawing comics are not the same, but I do remember kind of bringing this up. I was in a comics society in college, and I remember bringing that up and being like, they're really not that different. And someone gave me a pretty stern telling off. He wasn't too happy to hear me say that. Um,
That's one of the reasons why we have the academy is because I was a program director in animation. We did a programmatic review and an animation degree, and it got approved and all. But during the process, one of the recommendations was we had a sequential art module, which was basically comic book design and production within it. And the feedback from the panelists was maybe go back and consider removing that topic. I'm like, what? And I'm like, but this is teaching you about like images and deliberate sequence.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
color theory in it. And it's also the big difference between the two is in animation, because of the movement, it's more temporal, whereas with comics, it's more spatial. So you're
Mm,
occupying the space in the page more so. But yeah, folks don't really get it. And the common, and when I say folks there, I'm talking about like academia over this
mm,
side of the pond. Um, and then there's a lot of people who want to pursue or study, comic books as their preferred sequential art, but they're going on to study animation because it is adjacent, but it's not quite the same. But there's some transferable
sure.
skills.
That's
But
it,
there's
transferable.
obviously,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just cool because even we had Stephen Mooney on a couple of weeks as well, and he was saying like his early years because there was no comic book classes, So it's like they studied in Balliol with animation. It yeah, it's curious. It's and then the story because it's similarities in the general, but then there's so many differences in the specifics when you get down to it
Yeah.
as well. Um, do you
I'm always
prefer
kind of,
the? Oh, go ahead.
I was just like on that kind of spatial thing. Like, when you're reading a comic and the real masters of layout can just guide how quickly you read. And
Yep.
so, like, there's sometimes where like something's reaching this kind of fever pitch and you're just like, you know,
Hmm.
zipping through pages and then there might be a splash or something and it just like stops you in your tracks. That kind of thing is
Yep.
incredible because it's like with animation, you time out your cuts, you're making those decisions, like you're choosing what the reader's going to see. But with comics, there's this element of like guiding the viewer and like you can control the pace that they read at, and it's kind of incredible, you know? Um,
Absolutely. It's the choreography. Like that's something which is a lacking skill. When you do your first comics, it's the risk of talking heads because that's everyone's default, and then they're letting dialogue carry, but it's a show don't tell
uh-huh,
medium. And then people think, oh well, if it's you give someone a 4 page pamphlet, Zion, but if you do enough choreography within that and guide the eye movement is giving the feedback to the brain. Hey, there's a lot going on in the
yeah.
page. The same way as if you were reading several pages of content. But people, again, going back to Dave Gibbons, he was sharing with us in his interview that it's not just about learning how to draw, but it's learning how to see, to actually
Mm,
look at and take in the information. Um, and again, we're so used now to scrolling going past that it's all just a blow, but to feed that in the pacing to it, as you said. Yeah, it's a wonderful art form. When you can hack those little, because there's rules to it. It's like some would say there's been often the debate, is it a visual language? Because it does have rules, it does have structure. The big interesting difference as well in audience consumption of animation and comics is with animation, it can be passive for the audience, in which if you
mm,
sit back and decide just to let it happen, you might doze off or whatever. So be it. The story will still progress without you. But within a comic, you have to participate because you have to fill in the space between the gutters. You have to turn the page. So it is more. It's weird. It's like this magical collaboration in which the writer and the artist hands over to you and you go, okay, now you're like the audience, but also a director in this. You get to fill in what happens next. And
I
um,
think, yeah, the incredible thing with that is like, as a comic artist, you can set that up. As in when
mhm,
you're talking about a page turn, having a moment happen after the turn, so you have to take a beat to do that, and like it's kind of incredible how you don't get to decide how a viewer like interacts with your work, but you
mhm,
can do a lot to sort of ensure that that the pacing works in a certain way, so they have almost no choice but to engage with it as you intend it, which is kind of incredible.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
what
something
about
that I don't think I'm particularly good at. Like when I do comics, it's not that I struggle to do that, but I am awed by the people who are really good at it.
Oh yeah, I think everyone has their strengths though, isn't it? Sometimes people are the brilliant illustrators, but the illustration without direction means it falls flat, unfortunately. Then you have the great character designers, but character without story doesn't go anywhere. And then you have those who are like really good at just like what needs to flow onto the page, but then aesthetically it may be leaving more to be desired.
Mm,
That's why comics are great when it's collaborative. Yes, you can make your own comic, nuts and bolts by yourself, but if you can find that opportunity to collaborate, it's a wonderful thing, for it to happen. Um,
when I talk about
s-
the, transferable skills in storyboarding to comics, like, I mean, in my day job, I'm given the assets and I just kind of work with them. Um,
mhm,
and so, just for example, like a board artist will be given character designs, some location, but they are sort of deciding everything else. Like a storyboard is the first time that a script becomes visual, so they are deciding camera angles and pacing it and all that kind of thing. And in a similar way, I mean, you're talking about comics being collaborative, but the teams are never that big. Um,
mhm,
it's still like a really small group of people making all of those decisions. Like on an animation production, there are very specific jobs, and usually, multiple people. I mean, a crew will be, even a small show will be 40, 50, 60 people.
yeah.
And just yeah, everyone's in charge of very specific areas. But in comics, yeah, it's a very small group of people doing all
What are
of those
your
jobs.
preferred tools when you're working yourself? Are you more of a digital artist or as a traditional? Did you come up traditional and then you switch as a combination between both?
Yeah, I grew up drawing in a sketchbook. I mean, I still draw in a sketchbook, but
Mhm.
if it's really just like idea generation. I don't know if you can see above my shoulder there.
Ah, very
That
good.
is 18 Moleskine sketchbooks. I fill a couple a year. I just always have one on me. I've got my current one right here. Um, so yeah, I still use sketchbooks for. I like that size because you can just stick them in your pocket. It's like the
Yep.
A6. I have bigger ones in my desk drawer here, and I like figuring stuff out and just getting a big chunky marker. And when you can't really be too delicate, and kind of that's how I figure out character designs. It's just kind of draw the same thing over and over again. Um, and I remember like I got a Cintiq probably 12 years ago. It was a 22 HD, kind of one of the big ones, really chunky, really heavy. And I used to try and draw in bed with it because I was just at the end of the day, didn't want to sit at a desk anymore. So I'd get home and take this big Cintiq on my lap and my legs would fall asleep. Uh, and then after like a couple of years of doing that, the iPad Pro came out. You could draw on it, and it was half a centimeter thick. So yeah, primarily now I'm a digital artist, and it is because I can use my iPad on the bus and in cafes. Like I meet up with friends and we draw together. I'm just on the couch after work watching TV. Um, yeah.
It,
So really, I mean, I've mostly switched for the convenience of it. Um,
yeah, we were speaking to last Comic Con day. I think it must be in August. A couple of creators, like we had Rafa Labosco, and he came in from Brazil, and
mm,
he was like, "Yeah, but because he had his iPad, he was able to do some pages then while he was on the plane and get caught
yeah,
up and
I've
keep on
worked
track."
on
So
planes and
it,
trains.
this is it. What was the transition period for those listening who might be just kind of entirely new or just breaking in or just beginning their own studies? Going from pen to paper to stylus and tablet for years when I was teaching animation, I said to everyone, well, it's the same skill set.
Mm,
Usually the biggest leap is if you're using a Wacom tablet or bamboo where it's not a screen, so you're not looking directly at it
yeah.
as you would. So, but it's more a pad and looking up at the screen, so it's a different posture. So that takes a moment. But for the most part, the physicality of the drawing remains the same. You
Oh
adjust your
yeah.
nib, onto
Mhm.
the screen. But is there any tips in your sharing your own experience when you went shifted to digital? Was there anything took you a minute or two just to kind of adjust to?
Yeah, I mean the ability to zoom in 4,000% and fix every line. I mean, my style has gotten a bit looser over the years, but it's still pretty tight, like tighter than I would like it to be. And that is because I can zoom in further than any eye could ever see and clean up lines and stuff. And what I've come to learn is just like I think yeah, your work has a bit more of like vitality to it. If like, there is such thing as the perfect wobbly line, I think. Um, which is not to say you should spend all your time trying to achieve it, but just like lines that are, there's that digital thing of you've got your hand on undo and you're trying to hit the right line, you're undoing and you're trying to get that curve. I think a line with a bit of wobble in it is just so much more charming. So I think in a weird way, working digitally has kind of cured perfectionism for me, even though it's
Okay.
more possible now with digital tools. Does that make sense? I
Yeah.
would like in a sketchbook. I mean, it really is so much harder to work super cleanly traditionally. It's a lot easier with digital tools. But like over the years, if I'm inking something, I just try and do it on one layer. Sometimes it's easy to make a second layer, draw a line fully through a shape, and then clean up the ends, delete it where you don't want it to be, and then I'll just merge them down immediately. So all my line work is usually on one layer, and it just feels like when I first started working digitally, I would have hundreds of layers with just little bits and pieces on it. Um, I don't know. It struck me eventually as like not a great way to work. I felt like I was maybe relying too heavily on digital tools.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like I'm actually so used to working digitally now that I do kind of struggle traditionally. So when I say that I only use it to rough out stuff, like I think my skills may have atrophied to the point that I'm not capable of much more on paper. I'd really have to work at it. But yeah, it's funny you were talking about like the tablets that don't have like a screen display on it. I
Mm,
never got used to that disconnect with my hand being down here, my eyes being up here. Like,
yeah.
yeah, I just never got used to that. And unfortunately, they are cheaper than the screen
Yeah,
tablets.
significantly. I always advise to everyone, like, if you're on a budget, start off with them. Like, it is, as you were saying, like, I suppose in time, the more you keep to it, the more familiar it becomes. But
Yeah,
whatever budget you can, invest in your tools where possible. But at the same time, I advise everyone, like, keep it in your means, though. Don't go out and put it on credit then have it hanging
absolutely.
over you. Yeah, so, but no, it's just been curious just to hear the different journeys and approaches, because there's a plethora now, a cornucopia of like tools, softwares available. Um, and I remember when I was growing up, like people, there'll be this big debate then about, oh well, if you use reference, that's cheating and
Yeah,
stuff. And it's like, no, well, it depends on how one is using it.
yeah,
The exercise we always do is draw the eye, just say draw an eye, whatever. And then we put up an image and say, okay, now draw this eye. And then what you see is the same artist, but two completely different styles
right. You're
because,
drawing what you think an eye looks
yeah,
like versus what you're observing, right?
yeah. And it's amazing what people will tune into on their own initiative. Like some would have more sense of light and shading, or
Mm,
others be more anatomy. And then that may swap when they see the reference because they pick up on, oh, yeah, veins and stuff. It's
yeah,
so curious how we go. And that's what, like, again, anyone listening, if you're, because a lot of people are intimidated by picking up the pen, and it's like, well, just draw a single line freestyle as best you can, divide it into three sections, and if you have enough dexterity to do that, then you're good enough to draw. That's all that you need. The rest is finding your own style and
yeah.
practice.
I think
um
when I think back to myself trying to figure out what my style is, and
mhm.
there's like so much advice about what it means to be an artist and whether you're a real artist or not based on whether you can do this thing or not. And when I talk about my, traditional skills like not being what they were, even digitally, like I suppose one of the things that is like the biggest benefit is you can keep adding layers and stuff. So the way I figure out stuff is I will work so rough initially, and then I'll add another layer and refine that slightly. Add another layer, and just keep refining it. It feels like sometimes I'll just have like this mess of lines. I'm like, instead of drawing, I'm using the eraser to kind of like find what I want. Um,
Mhm.
and I sort of used to think like the fact, like, okay, so I would watch these artists just draw with a pen, straight, beautiful illustrations. But I need construction lines and I need to figure out the underlying shape. And I really, for a long time, used to think, like, God, I guess I'm just not a very good artist or I'm not a real artist or whatever. Um, I, I think probably the best bit of advice I could give to any artist who's coming up and trying to figure it out is like the end result is what matters. Kind of a lot of people will tell you a lot of things. Sometimes they're trying to sell you stuff. So be wary. And if anyone suggests that there's one way to do anything, that's not true either. Um, yeah, how you get there is the important. Sorry, yeah. Well, okay, the process is important, but if something looks good, how you got there doesn't even really matter. If you've had to draw it 100 times and you come out with a nice image at the end, well, you have a nice image at the end. I think like we tell ourselves a lot of stuff. Um, and I mean, just draw like you know,
Yeah, no, at the end of the day, it's a journey, isn't it? That's unique to the person. Like you can go on it with people, but it's like if you're on a coach, what you notice, someone else will notice something different. You're looking at the weather, they're looking at the landscape or the flora or the fauna, or etc.
and
It's
every perspective is equally valuable, I think.
yeah,
But just
that's it.
because I mean, if I think comparing really is younger artists do it because they're, I assume, trying to figure out how do I get there, how did this person do it. Um, but it's what is that thing? It's the thief of joy or something. Is that the phrase?
That's the
Um,
one. That's
yeah,
the one. Perfection, isn't it? Is the teeth of joy. That's the one.
yeah,
That's more of a. I think they say it's a state than it is a destination. Like it's a condition and a destination because if you keep trying to say, is this perfect by what standard, by what measure is it
You're
that
going
you're
to drive
looking for?
yourself nuts. You're never going to be happy. You're not going to finish anything. I think the best thing you can do is just finish stuff. Like I
Hmm.
pretty much aim to finish everything I start, and sometimes it's I'll spend 2 days doing something, and sometimes there'll be this arduous 3 month gap in the middle. But I'll always get there. I'll always finish everything. And I think like if you just give up on stuff because you're not really okay, well, there is actually a point that giving up is good, and recognizing that is important too. But like, if you give up on everything and never finish anything, you're like, do you know what I'm trying to say? There, you miss something by doing that, and
Oh yeah, like
finishing
sometimes
things.
people. I have a colleague of mine who I remember his experience of going to a portfolio review, and he had a bad one. But he had several arranged for that day. So he was so upset by the first one that he decided not to go back. But I was like,
Mm,
no, but you've missed out now. You don't know what's going to happen. So with people, it's the fear of when it comes to producing the work. Oh, what happens if people don't like it? Oh, it's not received as I hoped. But it just put it out there. Consistency and having a track record of completing will only lead
that's
you
it.
to build upon, to improve upon. If you stay too reserved, you're never going to move from step one.
Yeah, and I
It's
mean, in terms of working with a team and proving yourself and stuff, like I've known people who talk and talk and talk about projects that they're going to do, but I don't know that they've ever actually finished anything. So they don't have a track record of being able to deliver what they promise, you know?
yeah, this is it. Definitely build your professional reputation now is how it goes. What your
Mm.
work behind you is what says about you into the future. In your own pipeline and animation, whereabouts do you work in the pipeline? Do you pre-production, production, post-production?
So I kind of am a little bit of an all-rounder.
Hmm.
I've done mostly design and animation. So design will be, you know, pre-production concept work, and then I've been on shows where I've then followed that through into, you know, I'm designing props as the production is going. Um, Animation, obviously, it's you're just in production. But then I've rigged, which is pre-production. I've done a little bit of comp. I'm moving into comp pretty soon, so obviously that's post-production. And yeah, it's been. I used to be really afraid of being seen as a generalist and like, oh, this guy isn't really good at any one
That's the
thing
dirty
enough.
secret, isn't
Yeah,
it? That's the
yeah,
dirty secret of the industry. They say don't be a generalist, but
yeah,
the thing is, particularly if you work for small companies, they want generalists. And what we used
yeah.
to do with the
You can put me
students,
anywhere.
yeah, the way we would go is we won't make you a generalist, but we give you a general understanding of the pipeline. So
That's
you
it.
understand where you sit and what comes before and afterwards. And then if there's an
Mm,
error of how you can absorb or how you can build, and we still have it here in the academy. I took the principle over. T-shape of learning. Here's your pipeline. Where do you fit into it? That's the T-shape. But yeah, I've literally pulled out here where, academic meetings and career boards where they'd be like, you go to like NTA and they're like, oh, we don't want this academic subject. You need that to be on QQI. QQI, oh, you can't have them do all of this because industry doesn't want generalists. Yes, they do, even if they don't admit it on paper. It's
yeah,
um, it's like it's the dirty little secret, as I call it, in industry. And I wish more transparency was offered that being a generalist isn't a bad thing, and studios do want it. But if you're going in for a role, you have to go in with a specific role in mind, and you have to curate your portfolio for that role and your
yeah.
CV and your interview. But don't be surprised if, 18 months later, you find yourself somewhere else in that pipeline. It's crazy.
I've
Oh,
been the show I'm on now, it's season two. So I've been animating on this and I'm moving into comp pretty soon. On season one, I designed characters and then I rigged and then I moved to animation. So I've kind of been all over it, by the end of next month. And I think like problem solving is the thing at the root of it. If you have an understanding of the pipeline, and as you say, what came before you and what's next, you can fix issues that you're handed and you can prevent issues, you know, if you're handing something onto somebody else, you can sort of preempt what might go wrong and nip that in the bud before it happens. And so, like, uh, it's funny. I said to you, I'm an all rounder, and then I said the word generalist because generalist feels like a dirty word. But I had a director say to me, "You're a good all rounder," and I was like, "That's great. I'll take that. That sounds a lot better," you know. And so I'm like in interviews. that's like a buzzword. I'm trying to impress upon whoever's interviewing me that I'm like, I'm a problem solver. I'm an all, like, because that feels like a better way of saying it, and trying
But
to express that to them, that like, sure, I'll, as you say, you're curating your portfolio reel, whatever it is, for a specific position. But I think it's valuable to know that, like, if anything goes wrong, this is someone who can, you know, hop around and kind of fix stuff and take initiative and understand what needs to be done to fix a problem.
yeah, no, it's true. It just drives me nuts how people talk around it, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, but why? This isn't a negative thing at all. I don't know. I think it's one of those things in time. The thinking will eventually change onto it. And in your own comics work, then, what type of genres do you lean towards? Then, are you more slice of life, action, adventure, fantasy, etc.?
Yeah, slice of life, I guess, and um, uh, reluctant to say comedy in case it's not funny. Then it becomes slice of life. But
Fair enough.
yeah, no, yeah, I my comics are silly, and I want them to be silly and to try and make people laugh. And that's kind of all it is. Like I've only really done one like longer form thing, and
Okay.
again, it was just kind of autobio. Um, but I had something more to say than could fit in one page. Um, but yeah, typically I'm doing one page. I really love in the sort of limited capacity that I do it, like playing around with layout. Um, but yeah, I think I get bored easily, and if I had to do the same thing,
Mhm.
that would drive me a bit nuts. So I suppose, yeah, in my professional work as well, we're just talking about it. I suppose
Yeah.
it's partly where that drive comes from. It's a bit more interesting to be a bit all over. So that's why my comics tend to be standalone.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. And with regards then to DCAF then, so for those listening, what's the mission statement then for the Dublin Comics Arts Festival, DCAF? What's the goal behind it?
So DCAF is a small press, kind of indie comics festival. I
Hmm.
suppose the idea behind it is just it launched in 2016 by Matt Mellis, who was the founder. And at the time, it was just kind of an underserved community. There's a
Hmm.
surprising amount of small press in Ireland. Uh,
Yeah.
and there are some like big comics events, and yeah, they were doing a really good job of tailoring to like just the kind of more mainstream, or which I'm
Hmm.
not saying is a bad thing, but just definitely I think there was a bit of a gap for self-published and kind of small press stuff. Um, and so, I mean, the mission statement really is like, I know we would love it's to make our uh, it's to make it as cheap as possible for people to be able to share their work. And obviously, in Dublin, with venue costs are expensive, and event insurance and all the rest, like all the yeah, there's so many costs that go into running an event. It's some stuff would surprise you, only for I'm on the sort of organizing side of it, and I see what goes on. You wouldn't necessarily think of it all, but ideally we would make it absolutely free, and artists would not have to pay any fee to be able to pay for their table. But the price that we charge now, it's literally what we need. It's not a for-profit venture at all. In fact, we've been known to run at a bit of a loss from time to time. But it really is just, yeah, the goal is to sort of make it as accessible as possible for artists, to get their work out there.
So it's an important platform just to people to recognize, hey, there's unique work happening in this country
Yeah.
that's not quote unquote mainstream. Like you won't find it in an Image or DC or Marvel, but you will definitely still see stories that warrant your
Oh
attention.
yeah, absolutely.
How'd you get involved with the committee? Because this is how today's episode came about. It was actually Matt Little there I was speaking
Mm.
with. He had picked up some of the Flash Gordon, Oscar comics we had done, and then I was like, "Hey, you're involved in DCAF, I see. How about we talk about that?" And he passed me on to the committee. So it's really interesting to see the level of organization that's been gone into it because
I think
it's
everyone
great
there.
because that's how I began my career was with Light and Strike. I took a non-production role, so I wasn't writing or drawing anything. but that kind of kept the wheels on the train, as it were, because
Yeah, yeah.
everyone had someone to handle the logistics. So, how does that go about for you guys? Is it an elected committee, voluntary? What's the story there?
Yeah, so it's entirely volunteer based. We don't receive any funding to run the shows. It's very much a labor love. Actually, a laugh there when you talked. You said the word organizing, and I can imagine if any of the committee members hear that, they would, uh, at times it's like we're kind of just running around, whoever's available to solve a problem. It's tough. It's a completely volunteer driven effort, and so everyone has full-time jobs, families, kids, all that sort of stuff, busy lives, and their own creative projects. Like everyone is an artist of some kind. um and so I started selling my work at DCAF in 2017. It was the second event. I missed the first one because I just didn't know it existed, and I think I've only missed one event since. We've done there's been 25 of them now. I think our next ones are 26th, I think. And so yeah, for years Matt did it by himself, and we do it 4 times a year. Like it's not an easy thing to pull together. And for years, yeah, Matt would do that by himself. And then I think a couple of years in, he asked some kind of friends in the comic community to if they would sort of be on board for coming on and forming a committee and sort of helping him organize it. And then over the years, it's just grown a little bit, and people have come and gone as they've gotten kind of busy or been able to take on less and kind of step back and that kind of thing. At the moment, there's about 10 of us, I'd say, which is like it's a good number of people because, as I say, people are busy and have other life commitments. So it kind of ebbs and flows, the level of everyone's involvement, but there's enough of us that we can kind of pick up the slack. If a couple of people are busier than usual that month, someone else will step in and kind of take up some of that slack. So yeah, I can't imagine how Matt did it by himself. It definitely strikes me as a better thing that there's more people to take on some of that burden.
And how does it? Where does it take place? Is there a set location, or does it vary?
The organizing.
No, sorry, the actual event itself of
Okay, yeah.
DCAF.
So our current event is the complex. You know what? I should have the exact address for you. um, let me. So yeah,
This is the one in Mary's Lane, is it?
it's Mary's Abbey in
Mary's
just
Abbey.
kind of off Smithfield. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of the biggest events or venues that we've had today. We used to be in, God, DCAF has been in maybe 6 other places, and just Dublin
Okay.
being Dublin, they've closed down or become, we used to in the Chocolate Factory, which used to be, I think, a print studio and then wasn't for a while. And that's when DCAF was there. And I think it is a print studio again. So we lost access to that space. And um, yeah, so it's central, like middle of Dublin. We used to be out in Inchicore, and it was a great venue, really beautiful in Richmond Barracks, but
Mhm.
always just a little bit more difficult to get to. So I think just in terms of like organic footfall, we're in a better
Yeah.
position for that now, because people are in town anyway and they see our signs and they pop in. There's probably less of a chance of that happening if we're slightly further out of the city center. So yeah, I think for certainly for that reason, it's a great venue. Um, yeah.
Okay. And when's the next show coming up?
The next show is Sunday, the 30th of November, and it's a
Okay.
1 day event. It used to be two. We used to have 50 exhibitors split over 2 days, and now we have pretty close to 100 exhibitors in 1 day in
Wow.
this venue. Yeah.
And it's the complex is still
Yes.
in. Yeah, okay, very good. And if folks want to find out more and keep in touch with DCAF, what channels do you guys post on?
So we're active on Instagram, Blue
Mhm.
Sky. We have a website, dublincomicarts.ie. So you
Great.
can go there and find out about upcoming events, and you can see the posters for all the past events and that kind of thing. We post exhibitor information there, so you can see who's going to be at our shows, and we'll post our God, what's the word for it? Our program. So we'll
Okay.
do workshops and live drawing and that kind of thing. So you can go to the website and find out, at what time those are happening. And there's also, if you scroll down to the very bottom of the website, there's a section to sign up for a newsletter. So you can get, direct emails about upcoming shows and that kind of thing.
Great. So if people attend, they can see illustrators, artists with their stalls, but there's also classes, workshops, activities taking place that they can
Yeah.
participate in. What's the age demographic in mind here then? Is this something that could be a fun family day out, or is it
Oh,
more
absolutely.
intent? Yeah, yeah, very good.
No, I mean, there's definitely, um, I was just saying this on the radio yesterday. I have had kids at my table, picking up a book and they're about to look at it, and I'll just sort of gently, put my hand on it and say to the parents, like, maybe not, and it's just a drawing of a bum, but it's not up to me if a kid gets to see it. It's very much the parents' thing. So, um, yeah, there's some artists who'll do work that is kind of geared more towards an older crowd, but definitely lots of kid-friendly stuff. And it's free in, which I don't know that there are many events that are necessarily free in the middle of Dublin. And yeah, so we'll do classes and workshops and that kind of thing. So in the past, we've had bookbinding, and we've screened animated shorts, and we've done zine workshops. I know Kate, who goes by Tiny Greens on Instagram, she regularly does workshops with younger kids. So she's done a few zine workshops at DCAF. So really, I mean, the work on display, you're always going to find something that's appealing for kids and appropriate for kids. The sort of workshops is sort of dependent on that particular event. I mean, which is just to say we've had like portfolio reviews, which might not suit a 6-year-old, but a zine making workshop might be kind of more up their street. So yeah, there's always something.
Excellent. And so let's say some listening here now is some kind of benevolent money bags might be interested in getting behind, offering support to the show. What would you say then to close out? Why is this important? Why is the work at DCAF so important that a festival like this, which is free, family friendly, providing a platform for artists in the country, why is this important that people, get behind and support, the arts, particularly the
Yeah.
sequential arts here in Ireland at the moment, in your opinion?
Um, well, everything is getting more and more expensive, and artists have never been famously a demographic of people that are, you know, wealthy or have their pockets absolutely laden down with money. Um, Sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
Now, take time. Because we're just saying that the idea of like this festival exists and it's free to the public, it's available, it's the arts. People might turn their nose up at the arts. You're saying there, well, of course, people think maybe there's this intuitive idea of, oh well, if it's free, there's no value to it. Or if it's an artist, oh, you can just draw it. It just comes out of you like just like you're a machine.
Yeah, I
Obviously,
think.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead. That's good.
Um, Something that for me the most sort of magical part of decaf, which isn't something that we necessarily advertise because I don't know how you advertise this, but the community aspect is incredibly important. And you meet so many like-minded people, um, and people who are just into what you're doing. And typically the crowd who go to decaf are usually creative in some form themselves. So I'll be selling stuff at my table, and I've just kind of got into the habit of asking, like, do you make stuff too? 9 times out of 10, it's yeah. And it could be crochet, or yeah, I'm a filmmaker, or I make comics too, whatever it is. It really draws like a similar like-minded crowd. And Ireland is kind of for like such a small country, we're pretty big hitters. There are some big comics names in Ireland, and actors, musicians, all that stuff. But really, I think if you don't foster that talent, I mean, it's never going to develop, right? The way that we're competing on the world stage right now, with all these incredible artists, you have to foster that, or it's not going to continue.
No, excellent. Yeah, and as you were saying, there's great support for games and animation, but comics doesn't seem to be getting the same
Yeah.
level of recognition. And just across the way to the UK, they've been making huge investments now for comic book art and sequential art in the last while. And as you mentioned, like the Bean on the Dandy being manufactured in Dundee to this day, huge cultural and just publishing impact. and they're just right next door to us. So it's curious how we haven't been able to formulate or organize in the same manner. No, this has been a great conversation. Thanks so much, Seán. So it's the 30th of November would be the next edition of DCAF at the complex at Mary's Abbey, available to everyone to walk in, and there'd be workshops and talks, and there'll also be various sort of artists on display with their works. I'm assuming this is an anti-AI affair as well. There's no AI produced work present at it.
No, we are pretty actively anti-AI. And
too late, I got the soundbite there now. That's all downhill.
That's it. DCAF will never have a show again. So yeah, we're celebrating human-made art by real people. So yeah, we are anti-AI and sort of actively inclusive in that it is a masked event. A lot of our contributors, myself included, this was not the case when DCAF began, but I am now an immunosuppressed person. And if it's not for masks, then me and my friends and people in my community can't be there and don't get to share in this community. So it's a really simple thing that we can do to take care of people. So that is an important thing to us. Also, I should give you the times because I have not yet. It is 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on November 30th.
Great. And if people can find you on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, all the channels there with DCAF at Dublin Comics Arts Festival as well. And for yourself, Seán, if folks want to find out and follow your own career, do you have any channels you like to direct them to?
Yeah, so I'm Drawboy Shawnee all over the internet. So drawboyshawnee.com. That's my @ on Instagram, Blue Sky. I have a YouTube channel. Yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. Seán, thanks so much again for your time, and best of luck with the upcoming edition of DCAF.
Thank you so much. It was great to chat to you.
My thanks again to Seán for joining me for today's episode and Creator in Conversation. I really appreciated the opportunity to discuss DCAF and also some really interesting insights into Seán's own career and perspectives in the field of both animation and comic books. If this is the first time you've joined us here at Creator in Conversation, I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us online, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you can't find us on your podcast distributor, let us know, and keep in touch and give us some feedback if you like, or suggestions on upcoming episodes. You can write to us at info@tasqart.com. Check out our website, tasqart.com, and find us on the online handle on pretty much all the social media outlets at TASQart. That's at TASQ ART. TASQart for Tala Academy of Sequential Art. I know in a previous episode I mentioned I'll be recording some Malta Comic Con. In the end, I didn't record at the show, mainly because the show floor wasn't conducive to suitable recording. And also I didn't want to interrupt the flow when I was in discussion with some of my colleagues there. But don't worry, I've already reached out and I'm in the process of arranging some of the interviews via Zoom with the guests, so we'll still have those conversations and we'll fit them in just before we finish out season 1. And just a reminder for those listening, we do new episodes every Tuesday, but we're currently at episode 44. We're probably going to wrap up year 1, season 1, episode 52. So that will take us into January and then a little bit of a break, and we'll probably break into smaller seasons from there. Thanks again to Seán. Check out DCAF on November the 30th, and thank you for listening. Until next time, this has been a copyright production for Colleague Consultancy 2025.